G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Dyl, that's Stu, and we are the Fantasy Bros, and we are excited to partner with GameDay Squad this NRL season to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League in 2026. It is Wednesday. You know what that means. Teamless Tuesdays drop. We've got plenty to discuss, plenty of guns returning to help coaches out. So obviously, Tamari Martin, the big one for the Warriors fans, who is one in particular is Sif Kanga. He's already here, nice and early. 5:49. Howdy. Let's get rowdy up the wires, baby. Definitely. We are top of the table, and it is sitting pretty for us. Look, we've got lots to talk about. Multiple competitions are coming to an end. The GDS Cup, the Sunday Showdown, that $5,000 is almost won. The special comp, as well as the prize card battles, are heating up for both of us as well. So it's all happening in this penultimate regular season, round 26. We've got 2 to go, mate. It feels like just yesterday we were talking about the preseason, and now we're here. Stu, welcome to the show. Let's go around the grounds. How did you go in round 25?
Yeah, g'day, Dyl. G'day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in once again. Yeah, it definitely is all happening, and it was all happening for me last round. You can see there on screen a 3rd place in Challenger. It's a bit upset Monday morning. I think the bot on GDS Discord server had me at 4th, but I logged into the app and I somehow bumped up there to 3rd, so that was a nice little surprise. 8th in the under-24s, 10th in Champion, 14th in Classic. So all round a pretty handy week. I played a number of Roosters, obviously, in that game against the Tigers, expecting a far different result. But Sammy Walker, as my 3rd half, still got the job done with 79 points. A pretty big second half for him and a few other boys there. Made a pretty poor score respectable, but pretty fortunate to have Sammy Walker there in most comps, and he went quite well.
Yeah, nice. Look, I didn't go as well. I had the 17th in Champ and 22nd in Classic. I think I played too much of a straight bat, and it didn't quite help me too well. The one player that I did call out on the show last week was Tyron Wishart. He was named on the bench, and I said, just keep an eye out for the team lists, because more than likely he's going to move into that half role outside of Cameron Munster, and he did just that, and he ended up with 90 GDS points. I think the second highest score of the round from any position. I think only Herbie Farnworth outscored him, so it was a pretty good shout there. I had him in one of my pod teams, but the problem with my pod teams each and every week is I get a couple of players right and then about 3 or 4 wrong as well, so it's just got to get the combination correct. But look, plenty of success there, and plenty of success across other competitions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone out there, make sure you're tuning into us each and every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. not only have we got one more rugby league show next week, but we'll be straight into the NFL, the gridiron content as well. And boy, oh boy, that is heating up. You might have seen that the game has arrived on the desktop version. We're just waiting for an iOS update to push it on to the mobile version, and that'll hopefully happen by sort of the end of this week. So super exciting. Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Keep the schedules clear for that. But make sure you're tuning in, because Dyl and I obviously continue to have plenty of success, and we want to continue that through into that gridiron season. Obviously, as PDN Dyl himself are having plenty of success over on the AFL side of things and the AFL women. You might touch on that quickly in a minute as well, Dyl, but I know that there were plenty of Fantasy Bros logos on the leaderboard after week 1 in that competition. So our Wednesday preview shows will stay pretty similar. We're going to preview who we think are the strongly considers. We'll talk about some potential point of differences, and we'll talk about some of the players that we're going to fade because their matchups or their stats are telling us that they're not a suitable start. We'll talk about the all-important start sits of the week, our consensus starter side. We'll talk about the under-24 competition. We'll talk about the Stats Lab primetime Thursday, Friday night competition as well, and give those boys there a plug. And FantasyBros Sunday Showdown. Gee, there'll be some nervous coaches thinking about which players they're going to throw into their Sunday side. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to us on all of our socials. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Facebook, Insta, and we'll be continuing all of that content through the NFL season pretty shortly as well. Make sure you go follow. Just search at FantasyBros AU on all of those platforms to keep up to date.
Yeah, definitely. Look, there's 2 rounds to go, but you can still jump into GameDay Squad at any point in time. That's the best thing about the platform is you don't have to start from the very beginning of the season. So if you still have not yet jumped into GameDay Squad, now's the perfect time. Simply download the app, visit GameDay Squad website, create your account, use the promo code FBRL26 if you want to get involved in rugby league. That's going to get you 3 9-player common packs. If you are watching this and you just heard about the NFL and the gridiron competition dropping, we do have a code now for that as well. It's FBGI26. So use that code, get you 3 9-player common packs for the NFL season as well. So that's for all of our new coaches. You can use that either our referral codes or any of your mates' referral codes, get even more packs, multitude of bronze, free starter packs as well to get you started. There's plenty of prizes still up for grabs across all of the competitions. You touched on AFL. And anyone on Discord would have seen, as well as on our Instagram, that, yep, the boys on the AFL side and Petty had heaps of success, as did I. I ended up first for the season in the starter competition for AFL, which is ridiculous.
Well done.
It was all off the back of just the 2 of them and what they were putting out and me just following that. And, yeah, you touched on AFLW as well. The boys have been having success there. And I'm currently sitting 6th in starter after 2 weeks there as well. Again, just following all of that insight from the boys. So, look, plenty of cash, plenty of pack prizes up for grabs. We love it. Get involved. Get your friends involved so that you can collect, coach, and compete as well. All right, mates, the formal stuff's over. Before we get into it, I probably should apologise. I feel a little bit under the weather. I've literally just returned to Brisbane. I think I got off the plane about 3:30 this afternoon, jumped straight into the prep for the show tonight. I've had a whirlwind of a week. I haven't seen too much footy, so you'll have to help me out with a few things that happened over the weekend. But let's jump into it. Let's talk through some of the hooker options that we have available this weekend. The big one there you'll see on screen, Jacob Little is obviously injured at the moment, so that might bring in a potential point of difference. But our strongly considered this week, Blake Brayley, Harry Grant, and then Appy Coruscant makes his way in. Talk to us about why you think Appy's going to be maybe your number 1 hooker this week.
Yeah, I'm really considering it, but probably not in a like a challenger side where I'm currently first on leaderboard and just need to hang on to there because he does have a very low floor. But he's actually been the top scoring hooker through the past 3 games. Now, the Cowboys matchup isn't great on paper. They're only conceding sub 40 points, despite Appy averaging over 55 in his past 3. But look, he's picked up those kicking duties now. We expect him to have him this week after the injury to Adam Dewey, obviously, and Jock Madden couldn't kick a thing last game, and he effectively just gave Appy the tee and said, "Here you go, mate." And Appy kicked him pretty nicely. He kicked 2 goals there. So when you've got an 80-minute hooker kicking goals, that's pretty difficult to look past. And look, he does have a bit of a low floor. Only 3 games ago, he scored a pretty poor 28 through 81 minutes. Thanks to 3 missed tackles, 2 errors, 2 penalty conceded. He's always going to miss tackles. That's the thing, but he can rack them up as well. 59 tackles 2 matches ago against the Dragons for 71 points. No tries, no goals, nothing. last weekend against the Roosters. Really difficult matchup there. 47 tackles, had a nice 70 run meters. Still the 6 missed tackles, but the try and 2 goals meant he scored above 60 as well. So the hooker position has been pretty boring with Blake Brayley, Harry Grant. They've been pretty down on form. Blake Brayley just going through the motions, really probably cruising to finals, and Harry Grant, the Storm, it's not really coming together. Although I expect maybe a big game there between the Storm and Broncos. So Harry Grant could be a late call in. But yeah, the hooker position pretty interesting this week. Where are you looking, mate?
Yeah, just on Harry Grant, I'm fading him this week, and it's purely just down to this decision that the NRL's made around the kickoff rule, and they're going to trial it in the grand final rematch where there's absolutely nothing on the line, which is quite hilarious in itself. And I just don't know what that's going to mean for teams. And you potentially could see a lot of points in this game, but if this kickoff rule changes some things, I'm just not quite sure how it's going to work. So I probably just want to watch and see how that goes for a lot of players across that game. Obviously, there'll be a couple that we definitely play, but yeah, I'll be holding on Harry Grant this week. I think I'm just going to stick with Blake Brayley against the Eels. I think he's still the play. Obviously, scores for the last 3 weeks from Brayley haven't been great. He had those 2 down games. Obviously, had a bit of a shift in the position that he was playing when Trindle went down injured. Look, he bounced back with the 55 last week. There was plenty of attack from Brayley as well through the middle, which was great to see. We probably haven't seen a lot of that across the season. He's been very base heavy, so it's great to see that he's getting some running attack through there. The Eels as well, the last 3 scores from starting hookers against the Eels, 42 from Brandon Smith, 40 from JMK, and then the 63 from Reid Marnie. So there's plenty of opportunity there as well for Brayley. I think, it's just probably the straight bat play at the moment, especially with some prize cards and some finishing positions on the line. For me, though, I'm just going to play those straight bat options. What do you think about Damien Cook? Is there an 80-minute performance in Cookie? Maybe a little bit of a send-off, one final hurrah from Damien Cook, and can I find a spot for him in my side?
Yeah, there definitely can be a last hurrah, an 80-minute performance there for Cookie. We haven't seen it in quite some time. He hasn't played 80 minutes since round 18 against the Tigers. He started the season with a whole heap of big minute performances, and he was one of the go-to hookers until Jacob Little sort of came into the fray there, and he's just completely gone off the boil. Hasn't gone above 50 since round 13. Connor Mulhisen has been named in the number 14 jersey, and that's the only sort of worry there. Cookie won't be at the club next season. Mulhisen will still be there behind Jacob Little. So Little's injury history has been pretty poor with that soft tissue seemingly returning all the time. So they probably need to blood a young star or an up-and-coming hooker for when Little inevitably goes down. So I dare say Connor Mulhisen will get some minutes. Cookie's probably going to be capped at 50 or 60. Not for me, but certainly someone with upside if he does manage that 80-minute performance. All you need is a middle forward to go down, or the coach to have a tactical decision on the bench and leave him on it. And we see Cookie getting 80. Yeah,
I guess the other concern is that we've seen Cook in the past move out to the centres and play different roles as well. So you never know what's going to happen there with the Dragons. Look, Coach Stevens in. Good evening, mate, to you. Look, a few tough decisions for him this week. And if you've got any questions or you're not sure who to start or who to sit and you've got a 50-50, let us know. We'll see if we can help you out with some stats. But yeah, there's definitely going to be some tough decisions with a lot on the line. And then we've got a new face. It's great to see some new faces here. Penrith Lover forever. G'day to Penrith Lover. Hopefully you can get some insights to who we're looking at. Look, for me, the fades this week, Walters for me. He's obviously had a bit of a stretch, couple of games where he started to play some quite well, actually. He's in some form. And I think one of our mates the other day said that the Broncos are looking a lot better when Walters is on the field, which is crazy to think when we've seen some pretty horrible things from him. But I'm just fading him this week purely based on that matchup. The Storm only allowing 29 in the past 3. And then Wade Egan, I'm just putting a line through him completely. There were times when he was definitely playable in the past, but with Sam Healey garnering more minutes at the Warriors, he's playing some really good footy, and I love what Sam Healey's doing when he does come on and sort of looking for that tired middle, and especially at the line he dives over. It's great to see. That's why I'm fading Wade Egan up against the Knights as well this week. Just quickly, Reece Robson, a potential point of difference for you, or is that just going to be in certain special competitions?
Yeah, no, just in special competitions. I think he's got a little bit of upside there. He'll get through plenty of base. If the Roosters click, he's always a chance for a little dart over or putting a couple of forwards in there. So, yeah, if you want to go a little bit different against the rest of the pack, he's not going to disappoint, but he's probably doesn't quite have that high ceiling as some of the others on that list.
Yeah, for sure. And just quickly, Penrith Lover has pointed out Paddy, obviously, for the Raiders is on the bye this week, so you need to get rid of him in your under-24 side and any other competitions that you had him in. All right, let's jump across to middles. And it seems pretty stock standard this week for me. Haas, May, Smith are probably the main three. I don't want to talk about what happened on Sunday. We were messaging back and forth with May put to the bench and then 12, obviously named to play in that lock role. We made the switcheroo and it did not work out for us. Was it the first or second tackle that Alex 12 went down into it?
47 seconds into the game.
Yeah, and that was the bit of footy I did watch, and I think I almost turned it off there. So I think Terrell May is obviously going to get the boost there with Terrell May with no Alex 12 on the side. Is it as simple as just the Haas, May, Smith, or have we got a few other options as well?
I do love the Haas, May, Smith. I think Haas definitely reminded Broncos fans and fantasy coaches just how good he can be. And it's going to be no different here against the Storm in that grand final rematch. We go back 12 months ago. There was plenty of chat between, Stefano and the big Broncos pack, and the Broncos had the last laugh. I think if the Storm want to get anything out of this season, it's to get one back on the Broncos, and Payne Haas isn't going to stand for that, despite his way out the door. So, no question marks around playing him once again. Terrell May, no Alex Twal is as safe as the house. Lindsay Smith, despite the sin bin last week, obviously a penalty conceded there, a sin bin, 10 minutes off the park, still 57 points, played the 70 minutes, so just a 10-minute spell with no Isaiah Yeo. It's about a lock and load every single week. You might see there on screen as well, Jai Arrow. Everyone playing at home, if you're not too serious game day squad, or you're not too sure if you can improve on your position on the leaderboard, chuck him into your side. It's a really nice touch that the NFL are doing, the NRL are doing, letting Jai Arrow start in that 13 jersey, and a free little interchange there for Cam Murray. So you can maybe sub Cam Murray into there as well. I think he'll definitely want to have a big game there in Jai Arrow's honour.
Yeah, it's a great thing that's being done. And a bit of a shame that a few people thought it was okay to comment about a few other players that haven't been afforded the same luxury as Jai Arrow, but it's obviously for a really good cause. So I do applaud what the NRL and what the Rabbitohs are doing. So it's great to see. Look, you touched on that grand final rematch, the Broncos Melbourne Storm. You've got Stefano Udakamanu there as a point of difference. Do you think it's time for him to stand up and really put a bit of authority back to the Storm, since they've had a pretty horrible season this season?
Yeah, I do. Exactly what I said before. He's going to want to aim up. It just depends if he can get on top early, or if the Bronx pack get on top of him. I think if the Bronx start to dominate through the middle there, we can see Stefano sort of go into his shell a little bit. But it just wouldn't surprise me to see one of those big, 7 or 8 tackle busting performances by Stefano. And when we look at the live scores after the match, he's thereabouts with Payne Haas. But probably, just outside my top 3 or 4 middle forwards, but do expect him to have a pretty big one.
Yeah. Look, before we look at the other point of difference, which we'll touch on in a moment, are you looking at just the 3 middle forwards and then putting some more stock in the edges, or are you looking at that 4th middle forward on your bench as well?
I'm really tempted to go a 4th middle forward, and I don't mind Tino, not just because of his recent score, but he's been pretty good for the past month or so. So we'll chat him as a pod shortly. I'm just not too confident in the edge forwards. We'll get to that section shortly. So when we get there, there's a few question marks that I have about a number of players. So I think I might get 4 middles, 3 edges. But obviously, that might flex out and go the completely other direction and go for some upside in the edge forward position. But I like what a few of those big boys through the middle are doing.
Yeah, and there's a little bit more safety there. Look, Tino's a name that I think maybe wind the clock back about 15 weeks, and we had him consistently on the fade list through the first part of the season. But he's now found his way into some form, despite not a lot of happening at Titans outside of what Tino's doing.
Yeah, and rightly so on our fade list. Look, didn't crack 50 for the first 7 rounds of the competition. His minutes were hovering at just 50 in the last 3 games. We've seen him at 71, 80, and 71 minutes. So there's a pretty clear game plan there that he wants to finish the season strong there for the Titans and ensure they're playing some good footy. Look, in that 3-game stretch, Hasn't scored a try or a try assist, but has scores of 86, 62, and 70. Massive tackle numbers, massive run meters. He's still missing tackles, but when he's tackle breaking 5, 7 times per game and throwing in a couple of cheeky offloads, he's going to be racking up those points. So there's no real middle forward in as much form as him outside of the big boys. So if we're looking for a fourth middle forward, I'm playing him as long as I can trust that he's going to see that 70 minutes again.
And look, one name that's not there, one card that's not there, his name's still there. He's under the under 24 starts. Is Toby Couchman. He's been pretty consistent on our strongly considered for probably the whole season. Is there any particular reason why you're not keen on him this week, or is it just that we couldn't fit him on the screen?
Yeah, no, just the 3 spots. I think it goes without saying that he's a pretty gun play. Whenever you want to roll him out, whenever he's named in that Dragons pack, those youngsters are absolutely killing it. So yeah, he's not really a pod, but we've got a few other strongly considers there as well. If you want to go 5 middles, Tino and Toby Couchman as those 2 on the bench, then I certainly wouldn't shake my head at that. I think that's a good play for this round.
Yeah, definitely. Look, and then on our fade list, we've got Adam Fanua-Blake. Last week, what did he score? 85 points on that Sunday. And then Max King, he crossed over for a try as well. Both of those are on our fades. We just don't think they're going to repeat those performances. We've seen glimpses of Max King have some big games, and I think that 1 or 2 seasons ago he was someone we were considering, but I think there's just not enough output from either boys to warrant getting them into your side. I definitely won't be chasing AFB's points in any particular comp. I've also got Hamish Stewart as a potential fade. He's playing on the left edge up against Manly. They've only allowed 29 in the past 3 left edges, so he's actually, I've got question marks over whether I'm going to play him in the under 24s at the moment. It's probably just going to depend on what that makeup of that side looks by the time the first game kicks off tomorrow for me. But yeah, just some question marks over him. So keep an eye on that as well. Alrighty, let's jump into those edge forwards and let's have a look at some of the edge forwards that we're keen on. Strongly considers Ryan Couchman is doing some good things. A little bit down the last couple of weeks though. Jacob Preston and Ola Kawasu have been stock standard now. Strongly considered last few weeks. Are you still looking at Ryan Couchman, even though we haven't quite seen what we saw from him a few weeks ago?
Yeah, he's definitely in consideration for me just because how good he has been. And, if anything happens in that Dragons pack outside of him, getting a knock, obviously, then he gets those big minutes. We just remember 3 games ago, 80 minutes there against the Sharkies, 82 GDS points in pure base, 66 tackles. Thank you very much. He scored a try the week before against the Finns for 98 points, and that was just in 59 minutes. The last 2, have been a little bit underwhelming, just the 54 and 50 minutes for 45 and 54 points. There's not a lot of, gas left in the tank, obviously, there for the Dragons. Not too much to play for now that their fate is, sealed. So, yeah, that's still a big question mark for me with Mulhausen on the bench and Cookie likely not getting 60. That just means the 3 middles or the 3 forward rotation there, which should mean big enough minutes for Couchman. I think if you want to go safe, Ryan Couchman is a great edge. If you want to look for a bit of extra upside, got a few other boys there on that list that could pay off instead.
Yeah, and then on to the other 2. Look, Kamali last week was pretty disappointing, but I don't see any reason. I don't see any negativity out of that matchup there. And I think Kamali, based on what we've seen from him and the potential that he's got in terms of attacking stats, I think it's just an easy one to play him there. Jacob Preston, once again, he's scoring some pretty good numbers without too much attack. Up against the Panthers, is that any reason to potentially fade him? I know in the past we've sort of said that Panthers matchup across the majority of the park is quite tough, but is it still Jacob Preston over anyone else?
Yeah, it is. And the Panthers match up for that particular position on the field doesn't worry me one bit. We've seen a number of right edge back rows have plenty of success there, albeit against sort of Blaze Talangi, who won't be there. Jack Cole's, not much, or who is it? Jack Cogger. Not much better than Talangi anyway. There's always going to be a lot of direction, a lot of ball going that way. The lines that Preston runs off Galvin, who loves feeding him, mind you, is just so conducive to try scoring. And we've seen it time and time again. A lot of people probably are turned off by the Penrith matchup. And Penrith may roll over the Dogs, but the Dogs do have a pretty decent record against them in the past. They did get that win earlier on in the season, and that's when Jacob Preston had a bit of a field day. didn't he? I'll just have a quick look at what that score was. That was 83 points in round 6 against the Panthers. A try, 3 line breaks against that left edge, 4 tackle breaks. So, yeah, if the Dogs look at some of that film again, they're going to see those defensive frailties there on the left-hand side. And I think Galvin's going to be given the ball pretty early to Preston. So even if he doesn't cross the try line, I think there's plenty of base there. He's shown that he does rack up the base, can easily score a mid-50 or a 60 point without, any attacking stats. 53 tackles 2 matches ago tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, and I really like the Galvin shout this week as well. We'll get to that when we talk about the halves and the points that are on offer there against the Panthers. So I think that stack of Galvin Preston's a really good one to have a look at again this week. Over to our points of difference. You won the battle this week of the Bunnies edge forwards that were going up on our points of difference, and that's Tallis Duncan. So talk to us about why you like Tallis Duncan over who I like, and I'll talk about soon, and David Fifita.
I've got Tallis Duncan almost as a must play for me, despite being the reverse out of position superstar that we love. He's playing in the centre for the Bunnies, but we've got to put him in the edge forward position. Typically, that would be a no-no, but he's one of the few players, him and Simi Sasangi, obviously, that are giving us every reason to play them. I think he's going to be a great pod this week. He's still named in the centres, but he's scoring like an attacking back rower anyway, getting through plenty of base. And we also know just how good the Bunnies are when they go left. Cody Walker back. Likely to get plenty of game time. The most exciting part of that return, though, is Latrell Mitchell. Probably not going to get the full 80 minutes, might not even get 40 or 60. But if he's spending any time on the left-hand side of the field, they're going to want to get him the footy. And I think that just means that Tallis Duncan will have to move into the back row spot at the expense of maybe Ewan Aitken. So, yeah, I don't mind the Tallis Duncan play whatsoever. If he spends 80 minutes in the centres, there's every chance he hauls ones who are pretty frail defensively. It's going to be a 3 p.m. fixture there on the Gold Coast. Let's hope we got plenty of nice weather there. There could be a magnitude of points. Even if he doesn't score a try, should still get through plenty of base. I just think there's massive amounts of upside for Tallis Duncan this week. Yeah,
I love it. Look, I actually really like the, as I said, the aforementioned David Fifita, and it's probably the first time I've been able to actually consider him as a point of difference or even as a play in some main comps because he's got a really good positive matchup. I talked about it last week that right edge forwards down that side are scoring really well. Nicorette didn't quite meet those heights. He only scored 31, but before that there were scores of 65, 70 and 73 to right edge forwards up against the Titans. The last 3 games for Fifita on that right edge, he's averaged just shy of 50 points with only 1 attacking stat in that whole time, which was a try. So he had 16 tackle breaks in the past 3 games, and he also had 6 offloads there. So I think there's a potential for David Fifita to sort of get back to where he was a couple of years ago, where he was that fantasy beast, and we could play him each week, knowing that he would have plenty of tackle breaks, plenty of base, but then also have a line break and maybe even a try assist or a try himself. So I'm really keen to get David Fifita in the side. Who I'm not so keen to get into the side, who's another player you've got on the point of difference, is Max Platt. On the bench again, he was named to start last week, was moved to the bench. He still scored 68.4 GDS points. Where do you think he's sitting at the moment? Does he come into the side? Does he start from the bench again? What are you going to do if he does move into the starting side?
Yeah, I had him in my classic side last week because of the upside with him starting on the bench. Starting in the back row spot. Obviously moved to the bench, but I thought, well, he's still going to play some big minutes through the middle there, and the Eels are a little bit soft through the middle, so that certainly paid off there. Yeah, far less hesitant if he does go back to the bench. Obviously, the youngster there, Brian, forget his last name, but he was outstanding on that side of the field. I don't think he's going to have it his same way there against the Roosters, and I think Christian Wolf there might see that and maybe just make sure that he doesn't get thrown into the deep end against someone like the Roosters so early on in his career. So, yeah, look, if Maxi Platt does start on that edge, I love that because it probably just means he's going to move into the middle at some point when they get the youngster on the field. He's going to get through plenty of base on the edge anyway. We saw that in State of Origin. We know that the Dolphins are going to be doing plenty of defensive work there against the Roosters. So I see there plenty of base and always a little bit of upside there as well with the little body through the middle. He can throw an offload. He can tackle break. 4 tackle breaks in the last match there against the Eels. 6 3 matches ago against the Broncos. if there's any chance of an 80-minute maxi plath, sign me up.
Yeah, and look, even off the bench, I think it's a potential play as well. The last 5 is averaging 54, and there's only one game there where he scored 34. The rest have been 50 and 60 scores. So that potential off the bench, I don't mind it too much, and there's plenty of opportunity for him to play in a number of different positions as well. If there is an injury, he can play in hooker, he can play in the back row, he can play through the middle. So there's plenty of opportunity for him. It's so hard for me to look at someone starting on the bench coming into my side. And I know we've done that with Toby Couchman before. But yeah, it'll just have to be that decision that I make with that last spot potentially. It sounds like FRZZZT, Frizzed, is done with Ryan Couchman after doing him dirty last week. So if you're not going with Ryan Couchman, mate, let us know who you're going with. And g'day to Ganners AFL as well. It's great to see you back once again. Look, on the fade list, we've got Ewan Aitken on the other side of the field. Obviously, with potential changes, he might move to the bench. We've seen that happen a few times. So you just keep an eye on that. It's probably someone that you want to fade. Neil Lukey as well. Pretty tough game there. It's probably a fade. I've got a couple more for you. Both Knights young guns on the edge up against the Warriors. The Warriors are so well versed down both edges at the moment. Yeah. They're restricting both edges to less than 40 points. And then Fekete as well. He had an impressive starting last week on the left edge against the Tigers, even though they went down. The Dolphins have been pretty solid, only allowing 28 to left edges. So there's plenty of fades there. I wouldn't be chasing Fekete's points. Here on Lukey, I think the other side of the field for the Cowboys might have some more success with Nanai back as well. And that's a potential point of difference. Like I just said, Fekete scored 52 last week. Stewart 65 in round 24 against the Tigers. Nanai's played 7 times this season and he's only dropped below 40 twice. So he's got some good base and power and he's got plenty of attacking stats as well. So there's quite a few options out there. And don't forget your under 24 starts and Ryan Couchman and Fini Fuiaki as well. Get them both into your side. Alrighty, let's jump into the halves. And look, they've been on the strongly considered almost each and every week. Last week, we faded JC and was almost at our peril. Luckily, we had a couple of decent options and that we talked about as well. We'll talk about again in our points of difference, but strongly considered this week. Nathan Cleary, Nicho Hynes and Jaden Campbell. I'm going to start with that man in the middle, probably my favourite player in the NRL at the moment, outside a couple of Warriors players. But he's gone a little bit cold. He obviously rescued a really poor score at the end of that game. He's averaging 45 in the past 3. That's well down from his average of 65 throughout the rest of the season. Is Hynes a lock or is there some question marks over his form at the moment?
Yeah, there are some question marks. Maybe he's still getting used to life without Braden Trindle there. That combination was really impressive, for big parts of the season. But we're talking about a guy here who's gone over 100 3 times. Fade a guy that goes over 100 3 times in a season at your own risk because, there's every chance he can do that again on a Sunday afternoon against the Parramatta Eels. I don't want to sit there on a Sunday afternoon and sit through a Nicho Hynes masterclass, which is shown time and time again. Not only is it 3 100s, it's a couple of 90s amongst that as well. So it's pretty much 25% of his games that he's scoring, 80 plus, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, there are going to be some low scores. We've seen a 25 against the Roosters, an unfortunate 32 against the Dragons where they got wiped off the park. But the downside is there, but I think the ceiling's way too high. You'd be a very brave man to leave him out.
Yeah, and the Eels allowing plenty of points to right halves as well throughout the season. 61 averaging across the season. That's a couple of hundreds in there from Adam Dewey and Jaden Campbell as well. So there's the potential for him to have a massive game. The Sharks are still playing for a decent spot, potentially in that top 4. So they've got a lot of work to do in the last 2 games. So I think they'll want a big one. So if you're not keen on one of those, and maybe you're not keen on Hynes, even though Stewie's just talked everyone into it, talk to us about the 2 points of difference. Sammy Walker was our key man last week, and you talked about at the start of the show. Is he once again someone that you can go back to, especially with that matchup against the Finns?
Yeah, I think it's a decent matchup there. The stats aren't as positive as you might think. The Finns defensively are okay, although the Roosters are an outfit that can put a score on as they please. We've seen it before. They caught us off guard last week and left it to the last minute for Sammy Walker to stand up. But look, he's been the form half really alongside the likes of Nathan Cleary in the past month of footy. 116 against the Cowboys, 31 against the defensively sound Bulldogs, the 63 against the Penrith Panthers, which is what I said on the show last week, was a reason why I was really confident with him against the Tigers. If he could put up, decent score there against the defensively strong Penrith Panthers, there's no reason why he couldn't go well against a pretty poor Tigers outfit. So I think he's going to get the run of the game a little bit again against the Finns. It could be high scoring. He'll have his fingerprints all over the game, just not quite in the top three halves for me. But I certainly wouldn't tell anyone not to play him, particularly since he's in some red hot form.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore the form that he is in. And crazy that game last week, the Roosters not getting up and the Tigers getting it done. Very interesting. And we had plenty of stocks on a few Roosters players, and fortunately for us, they got it done right at the end, as you said. Two players in particular that are returning from injury is Tommy Dearden at the Cowboys, but also Tamari Martin returning for the Warriors, which is a big boost considering we lost DWZ out on the wing as well. So it's great to see a couple of players coming back for the Warriors. Either of those two players on your radar, knowing that we don't really like returning players from injury in that first week anyway?
Yeah, we don't. Take Tommy Dearden, for example, played all the way up to round 10, came back in round 20, still got through the 80 minutes, scored a try, 66 points, but then was out for a month and a bit. So there's always, some hesitation playing a guy like that. But look, I sort of forgot just how consistent he's been all season long, averaging just shy of 60, but has only gone below 50 twice. That was back in round 2 and round 3. Has been an absolute model of consistency all season, bar that injury, obviously. And look, he's not even kicking goals. He's just racking up points all across the board. And look, the Cowboys are still going to want to be playing some good footy. Got a nice match up there at home against the Tigers. Plenty of points to score up north there. He's a massive chance that re-injury risk.
And I think that's going to be a big game that I'm looking to target as well because of the wider aspects of the finals, really. The Cowboys trying to get everything done to stay in that top 8. There's a few teams snapping at their heels as well, and the Seagulls are one of those teams. So I think that the Cowboys will want to put on some good performances over the next 2 weeks, so I don't mind chasing those points there. One player that I am super keen on, I talked about him earlier when I talked about Jacob Preston, is Lockie Galvin up against the Panthers. It sounds like a pretty dangerous matchup to target, but the last 3 weeks for right halves against the Panthers, listen to this: Metcalf, 88, DCE, 78, Wishart, 90.
Wow.
They've had 15 tackle breaks combined between those 3 and 5 tries between them against the Panthers in the last 3 weeks. I talked about Wishart potentially last week being a big player if he came into the side, and now we've got Lockie Galvin. The Panthers are on this bit of a downslope. They haven't played some good footy over the last few weeks. The Bulldogs are playing some decent footy. They'll want to solidify their spot. I don't mind the Lockie Galvin play, even outside of under 24s, maybe in a pod side. I think I might get him in. And as I said, that stack between him and Jacob Preston could be gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Gee, the big difference, though, for me is those 3 in the strongly considers plus Sammy Walker. They're all obviously kicking goals and got some decent matchups in terms of point scoring ability. That's the sort of safety blanket I want from my halves. But, gee, those are some pretty impressive scores, are they? If we're talking about DC, that's probably the first time we've mentioned him at all this season. And he's amongst those 15 tackle breaks. What did he get? 0? And the others got 15 between them. But, yeah, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? Gee, Lockie Galvin will definitely be getting some salary in my 24s if I can't find a spot for him in a classic or a champ song.
Yeah, definitely. Look, and from hero to villain, I feel that in the fade list, we've got Tyron Wishart. He has been moved to the centres, and you're really off him this week because of that move.
I just think it's just highlighting the fact that he's not playing in that half position where he gets his hands on the footy. He's such a damaging ball runner, makes, countless number of runs, and he's always pretty handy for a tackle break. Or an offload. We're just not going to see him with the same opportunity there. He's not going to have the same kick meters with Hughesy and money back there. So I just think, temper expectations with Wishart. He's been in an ideal position and match up in the previous few weeks. If you think you're chasing some of those big scores, it's going to be harder to come by in the centres. Not saying he can't get there. It's just not set up for him to succeed like it has been in the past.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm not going to get there myself, but I actually don't mind the matchup that he has. The Broncos allowing back-to-back 50-plus scores down that side to centres. So there is an opportunity for him. But, yeah, I agree that the out-of-position play is probably just not ideal, and there's probably a little bit of flaw to what we could expect from him. So I think, yeah, that's a pretty good fade. Is Qatar another fade just purely based on that matchup for you?
Yeah, Roosters conceding. I think it might be 20 points or something in the last three to right halves. So yeah, not targeting there. There's plenty of other guys you can look at.
Yeah, and look, the other player that I'm fading, and potentially in the under-24s as well, is Fletcher Sharp up against the Warriors. The Warriors, yeah, they allowed Sammy Walker 47, but before that, man 0, and then Cole 30. So we know Sharp has had some pretty much a roller coaster of the season in terms of the scores. So he did have a pretty low score a couple of weeks ago. So we'll have to just wait and see how he goes there. Alrighty, let's jump into the centres. And I really don't know what to do this week, so I'm hoping you can steer me in the right direction in the centres. Herbie Farnworth is obviously the absolute lock. He's got a more difficult matchup, but I think he's matchup proof. We've seen some low scores from him, but he obviously busted out at 98 last week, so it's really hard to fade him. Outside of that, we've got Robert Toya up against him, and then Kale Iro on our strongly considered. Can you talk me into one of those two options?
Yeah, the more I think about it, it's going to be Kale Iro. The Eels matchup on that side of the field is far more conducive to point scoring. We've got the Sunday afternoon game, hopefully in plenty of sunshine there. I think the Sharkies, while their defense hasn't been amazing, their attack's still clicking. And I think the Eels have given up about 60-odd points to left centres in the past 3 to 5 or past handful of matches. Yep. When we look at Bobby Toya, a great footballer, better than Kale Iro in terms of his form, better side when the Roosters are clicking. But that defensive matchup between Toya and Herbie Farnworth, those two are both not conceding many points to their opposite number. When we're pretty confident to play Herbie despite the matchup, for me, it's hard to play another guy that's got just as hard of a matchup, but doesn't quite have the track record as a Herbie Farnworth does. So, look, Toya bailed us out last week with a couple of late nice runs and set up a few handy breaks there for Marky Mark and that sort of thing. But yeah, the more I look at that, the left side of the field for the Dolphins are keeping their opposition pretty quiet. So it's going to be Kale Iro for me with the Eels matchup, and that looks like it's going to be pretty conducive to point scoring.
Yeah, the Eels conceding 66 on average across the past 3 to left centres. So I think Kale Iro is going to be one of those players that I will get into the side. There's also another player that we don't have up there, Tommy Chester. He's got a pretty decent matchup down there. The Tigers have allowed 59 to Toya last week, as we said, and 56 to Sully the week before. Both of them scored tries, so there's some opportunity for Tommy Chester. We know he can light it up as well, and as we've said, there should be plenty of points in that Cowboys-Tigers game. If you can't get to one of those 3 that we've just talked about, Herbie Farnworth, Robert Toya, or Kale Iro, the 2 points of difference that we're pretty keen on as well is Campbell Graham and then Bradman Best. Talk to us about why Campbell Graham maybe for you might be in that 3rd or 4th spot if we were going with that many centres.
Yeah, really surprising, actually. He's been one of the highest averaging centres in the past 3 rounds when you filter past 3. So obviously, the Bunnies' attack is clicking, and he's playing on the right wing. We know that the Bunnies, are pretty dangerous on the left, but they're pretty handy there on the right too. And he's top of that centres list over the past 3 matches. So you definitely can't look away from that. Definitely when he's in a little bit of form. And like I've said a few times already this evening, that Saturday 3 p.m. match against the Gold Coast Titans has 70 plus points written all over it between the 2 sides. And look, if we're expecting the Bunnies to score a few and Latrell Mitchell to play a role, there's every chance we can see both AJ and Campbell Graham on the other side of the field scoring well. For me, I just probably don't trust it. I can just see a 23-point game and everything goes left. But yeah, definitely can't ignore the fact that he has been scoring pretty well and he's every chance to repeat that again this weekend.
Does it change if Latrell Mitchell does come into the side and plays in that left centre role where then you'd expect everything to go left? Does that then probably put a line through Campbell Graham?
Yeah, spot on, I think. If they do decide to play Latrell and run him out, they're not just going to play him to look good. They're going to want to get the ball into his hands and get him fit and get him having some contact and, flicking that offload out the back to AJ. So, yeah, a lot of the play is going to be centered around that. You would expect probably for maybe 30 minutes of the match, meaning we've got a maybe a 50-minute solid performance from Campbell Graham before he can sort of just have a front row seat to watch everything go the opposite direction.
Get paid to do not very much. Look, on our fade, we've got Stephen Crichton. Finally, he's moved to the fade list. I think we've had him on our pod for the last few weeks. Is it just purely that matchup, or is there something you're not liking about Stephen Crichton?
Yeah, it is the matchup. I've sort of noticed that when he plays against some of those tougher teams, we don't see him taking the line on too much. He's a little bit more conservative. He's just got a really low floor, and we've seen a low floor from him in the past. So I think I remember seeing a comment on Discord maybe over the weekend that someone has played him for about combined 20 points across 2 matches, and the week that they sit him, he goes on a massive 68 or something like that. So yeah, that's why it's the Penrith Panthers. We know that they're susceptible on the right hand side of the field in terms of the doggies attack, so I think that's the area of focus. The left hand side where Critter lines up, it's against Nathan Cleary. Not only does it mean harder for the dogs to attack themselves, but Cleary is such a good footballer. They're going to direct a lot of traffic that way. There's every chance, Critter falls off a few tackles and that sort of thing as well. So, yeah, he's been good in the past, playing out of position. If there's 1 week I'm fading him, it's definitely against the Panthers.
What I'm finding interesting, it's hard to sort of pinpoint when and where it happens, but him and Matty Burton sort of swap roles in defence quite a lot. He moves back out to that centre role and Burton plays one in. And they seem to do that quite a lot. And I don't know whether that is helping or hindering his defensive performance at the moment. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on that and almost have a critter cam just to see how that goes in the last 2 games for the future. Look, Ganners is going with KL Ito, and I tend to agree that probably those stats are definitely going that way. One player that we're definitely not going with is Valentine Holmes, the opposite of a tackling machine. He's been falling off tackles at will all season. Another 15 in his past 3 that he's falling off. Is it purely just that demerits again? He obviously, as you said, the Dragons probably don't have a lot to play for. They've got an eye on the end of season plus an eye on the future in terms of next season. And Val Holmes is probably just not going to have much to muster over the last 2 weeks. Alrighty, let's jump into the wingers. And again, oh, sorry, mate. Let's jump into the wingers. And once again, for me, it's a 1 in terms of Suafolongo, and then I don't know where to go outside of this. So hopefully we've got some stats that can help everyone as well. But look, Sua's got that really strong matchup. The Broncos have given up 52 in the past 3 and 54 in the past 5 to fullbacks. And look, the past 3 fullbacks have crossed over for a combined 5 tries and a combined 13 tackle breaks. So I think Sua, irrespective of the positive matchup, he's a play each and every week in that winger spot. So where do I go next? We've got AJ and then Brian To'o as our strongly considers. We've got the points of difference of Tom Jenkins and another player that you're going to talk about in a moment in terms of Failolo. So where do you want to start, mate? Who's your second winger this week?
We were talking off stream sort of just before we went to air, and you were certainly talking me into either of the Panthers wingers. So I'm pretty keen to hear what you've got in terms of what they have to offer. I don't love it, but I'm leaning towards AJ at the moment, and I just never really see him as a fantasy weapon. But you can't ignore some of the numbers that he's putting up recently, and particularly when he's in contention for that top try scorer record there against Tommy Jenkins. So we could probably expect both of them to have a big match. Obviously, with Latrell Mitchell likely returning, that just puts even more upside in AJ. Plus the Saturday 3 p.m. Gold Coast Titans. How many times do I need to talk about that match? It just looks like it's all set up for an AJ masterclass. Get this, 2 matches all season, he hasn't scored a try. And both of those matches were sort of around origin time, round 14, round 17. So you can probably expect things to be a little bit clunky. They're losing a few players there, some players on the short turnaround, that sort of thing. He scored at least 1 try in every other match this season. He scored, let me count it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches. He scored at least 2. He scored a hat trick twice, and he scored 4 back in round 15 against the Bronx. Someone with such high scoring upside. And mind you, he's played half of that without Latrell Mitchell. So, yeah, there's so much upside in playing AJ. But again, he just strikes me as that guy, you're playing your side, and he just, walks around for a 24-point game, and just things don't seem to click for him. Plenty of upside. I'll get there somewhere, but maybe not quite in my number 1 side.
Yeah, look, I remember maybe this time last year I put AJ out in a massive pod, and I think everyone laughed me off YouTube. So, look, I won't do that this week. But you're right, he has absolutely just gone about his business. Everyone's been talking up Tommy Jenkins in terms of his try scoring record this season, but AJ's right there at the moment as the top try scorer with him. So, yeah, it's hard to ignore. And you're right, the moment Latrell comes back, a lot of that ball is going to go down the left, and I think there's going to be a lot happening for AJ in the last 2 matches, and potentially he might come out on top over Tom Jenkins as the highest try scorer. But let's talk about Jenkins and Bizza. I've got both of them there. They both have positive matchups against the Dogs, and I can only choose one of them, and I just don't know which way to go. And look, I think whichever way I do go, if I do play Jenkins, it's going to be Brian To'o that scores well. And if I do go To'o, it's going to be Jenkins that scores well. But look, the Dogs allowed right wingers in terms of Fine last week, 78 GDS points, and Campbell Graham the week before, 66 GDS points. That's with 3 tries between them. On the left side, the Dogs, very similar. They've allowed 54 on average the past 3. With 3 tries being scored across those 3 games as well between the wingers. So there's every opportunity that both players can score well against the Dogs. The Panthers we've talked about, they're in a bit of a slump at the moment. They need to form slump at the moment, They need to find a way out of that, particularly with some momentum into the finals. And what better way to do it than have both of your wingers score plenty of tries?
Yeah, look, I think you need to let me know which one you are locking in, and I will go the other one in at least one team. So between Jenkins and To'o there, one of us will be cheering, but hopefully if things click, then they could certainly both go off. But yeah, you're probably going to have to play both of them, so you're at least happy with the one that does go off.
Yeah, there's potentially a bit of a pattern as well that we might be able to find between Jenkins and To'o. To'o obviously scored a few tries last week, Jenkins not so much, so maybe it's back the other way. So maybe I will lean Jenkins just because he's had a couple of down games as well, and we've seen Jenkins doesn't really have too many down games. He follows it up with a couple of tries to boot, so hopefully that might be the difference. Unless, of course, you can convince me of Clayton Failolo with his move to the number 6 for Manly. Tell us about why you think this is an absolute smash play for GDS.
Yeah, that one sort of came out of the blue, didn't it? Obviously, the Seagulls without Lukey Brooks, Joey Walsh as well, and Fa'alalo just absolutely ducked to water. Just about looks like a 100-game vet in the number 6 jersey. He ignited Manly right from the first set and scored their first try. Went off the field with the HIA, but only played 67 minutes. Still scored 65 GDS points just with the 1 try and the 1 line break. He just racked up across, all statistical areas. A line break, 3 tackle breaks, 2 offloads, 170 run meters, obviously kicking a little bit, being in the middle of the field as well, with 144 kick meters alongside Jamal Fogarty there. So there's always some bonus points. But he's just an absolute ball runner. He just loves the footy in his hands. I think he made 18 or so runs. And when you've got a half running the footy that many times, they're likely to break tackles. Look, if you want to play someone out of position, you want to play it against the Dragons. That's a great matchup there if you want to back someone to go massive. And I think that's why we can be pretty excited that he could put up a big score there. It just means, you can't go an AJ, you can't go a Bizza, a Jenkins, a Jermaine Asako. He has had his own fair share of injuries, had a hamstring earlier, had the head knock. You just hate to back him in all the way and then he is leaving the field after 15 or 20 minutes. So I think there's tremendous upside there against the Dragons as well. There's no secret that his shift there. Look, Tommy didn't even play that well, but they were still fantastic and upset the Knights on Old Boys Day, and he was a big reason for it. So yeah, big fan this weekend again.
It's going to be tough for GDS next season to put a positional tag on Failolo. He's played winger, centre, fullback, and now he's playing in the half. So he might just have to have the flex position, and we can play him.
Yeah, let's do it.
Look, Critter down that side, 60 points last week against the Dragons, attacking that left edge of the fields. And look, the only downside is that Critter did kick 8 goals in that game, so that obviously makes a big difference in why his score is a lot higher there. But I think there's some good opportunity for Clayton down that side, and then hopefully we have a big game from them. The one name that's missing, a bit conspicuous with his absence, is Jermaine Asako. We've been on him for weeks. and we continue to say if he doesn't score a try, he will pick them. Up against the Roosters, they're allowing 38, averaging the last 3 games, 38 GDS points down that side. Skelton scored 2 tries down that side last week. Karaz did the same in round 23. So there's every opportunity for Osaka. I think it's just going to be a really tight game, and I think it's going to be a lot of work through the middle. And I don't necessarily see a lot of ball going out wide very often. And we've also got Cobbo there on the phase list because there's just nothing happening for left wingers against the Roosters. Is Osako still someone you can rely on just purely based on that idea that he's got the goal kicking and there's going to be, if you think there's going to be points scored in this game, then maybe you can get it on Osako?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If you expect points being scored, I see this one being a bit more like a semi-final. We're two games away from the final series. Both of these two teams will be there. The Roosters, a bad loss last week to the Tigers. They'll definitely want to atone for that. And the Finns themselves will want to roll into finals. And playing someone like the Roosters right now is a really good sort of, where are we type game. And they'll want to compete for the full 80 there as well. So I can see it, definitely being pretty tight through the middle. Limited opportunities there for Osako, both in terms of the try scoring opportunities and the goal kicking. Pretty happy to fade him this round. Look, if we were saying it was an Eels, a Dragons, a Tigers type fixture, we wouldn't be second guessing a Jermaine Osako start. It's just purely the matchup and what the stats are telling us.
Yeah, and I guess on the other side, we've got Lehigh Hopoate there as a fade. And we talk about that Dragons matchup, but they're only allowing 19 points in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Muatalo scored 24 points in round 23. So I think there's something to be said there that the Dragons are allowing plenty on the right side and not too much on the left. So I think that's a big fade for us this week as well.
Yeah, but they're also they're not able to get the ball all the way out there because they're scoring before the ball even gets out to the wing.
Yeah, well, that'll be a big game either way. Okay, the fullback position. This is, I feel like this is the hardest position this week because we've been teased again with James Tedesco being named at fullback once again. But the question is he going to actually suit up and play? Questions are all around it because they talked potentially last week about the Roosters resting some players in an easier matchup against the Tigers, knowing that they had a top 4 spot sewn up. But with that loss, there's now potential that they lose a home semi, that there's a whole lot of ramifications that they obviously want to go out and try and finish on top and finish in that number 1 spot. But to do that, you're going to have your best players on the field. And I just don't know about James Tedesco being named, the last month, and he has been pulled out the last minute. Is that someone you're just completely ignoring, even though there's a pretty decent matchup? The Finns have allowed 60-plus scores twice in the past month to fullbacks.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ignore him. I think it was, the writing was on the wall last week with him named and then withdrawn once again. So I just can't trust that. Yeah, either he's at full fitness or be even going to take the field. And fortunately, it is a Saturday 5:30 match. If you are keen to play Teddy, you don't have to wait till the final game of the round like we had to last weekend. But I think it's an easy fade there. Just had a quick look at the ladder. Finns win this, and they go on equal points with the Roosters. If they win by 12, if my maths is correct, they're probably just about neck and neck in terms of points difference. So an absolute huge game there for the Finns and the Roosters. When you look at it like that, maybe Teddy does come back to ensure that victory. But is he underdone? Maybe. I just am happy to fade him. I'll fade Hammer as well because the matchup there is probably going to be pretty tough. And there are a few decent little pods there that I think we can find in the fullback spot.
Yeah, Hammer is on our fade list. He's been pretty disappointing for the last couple of weeks after we've been talking him up. But in terms of our strongly considered, the first one there that the name on the list is Tommy Turbo. He returned from injury earlier than expected. We speculated last week how well he would go. He showed some pretty good glimpses of his former fantasy production, but he only mustered 36. Do you see a difference this week when Manly are trying to get into that top 8? And obviously, I need both wins over the last 2 weeks, and this Dragons matchup could be a really good one for Tommy.
Yeah, there doesn't get too many better matchups, particularly when they've got nothing to play for, and your team has plenty to play for as well. The hard thing when you're playing Tommy Turbo is, you're just gritting your teeth and crossing your fingers every time he goes into contact and has to get up and play the ball. I think on 2 occasions he was sort of behind the play and. You're sort of wondering, is he going to get back into that attacking or defensive line? So, yeah, look, maybe you just expect that in the first game back from injury. He got through 78 minutes. So hopefully, that first game back since round 20, that's sort of what he needed. And, yeah, maybe we see a Turbo at closer to maybe 90% rather than maybe 75 or 80 than we might have seen last week. We know how good he is. Can he get there this week? I don't know. It's just that Dragons matchup that's so tempting. I wish they were playing, almost anyone else. That's a harder matchup. And I think, oh, no, I'm not going to risk it. It's just so tempting, isn't it?
Especially when Connor Tracy scored 60 GDS points last week against them.
Oh, dear.
I see you've snuck into our point of difference, which I'll get your thoughts on in a moment. But, yeah, I think it's hard to ignore. The big one is obviously that injury history. And yeah, it's a bit similar to what we talk about with Jacob Carraz and the way that we've sort of not played him because we don't want to see him go off the field. I feel very similar for Turbo at the moment, but there aren't too many other options outside of that at this stage because we've also got Callum Ponga on our fade, and we'll talk about him in a moment. But someone I'm pretty keen on is Scott Drinkwater. He's been pretty quiet the last few weeks, but look, despite losing in terms of the Roosters last week, Cody Ramsey put on almost 70 GDS points against the Tigers. The week prior as well, Daniel Atkinson, of all people, hit half a century against the Tigers in that fullback role. So, look, the Cowboys desperate for a win to stay in that top 8. They want to score plenty of points. Drinkwater with the kicking duties as well. Is he a lock and load this week?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I'm hoping he's going to be flying under the radar a little bit. Haven't really talked, too much Scotty Drinkwater in the past. So hopefully a few coaches might overlook that and go for the usual names like a KP, a James Tedesco, maybe a Hammer. I think, there's every chance that he finishes in fullback, particularly with Tommy Dearden back in the side, and Scotty Drinkwater has the kicking tee as well, nailing them so much better than Jake Clifford, and that's just an extra string to the bow.
Yeah, and look, it is something to say when people are putting their team together. A lot of people, I'm sure a lot of coaches will be filtering by average score. And so when you do that, you've got players like Latrell Mitchell, Kalen Ponga, James Tedesco, Dylan Edwards, who we'll talk about in a moment, Hammer, Keanu Kinney, and Iongi ahead of Drinkwater in terms of averages at this stage. So you've got to scroll quite a long way down to find him. So you're right, it could be a bit of a pod because he's probably just not at the forefront of everyone's minds. And of course, they probably aren't now that we've said him. But look, Dylan Edwards is another player that's sort of gone by the wayside over the last couple of weeks, but he's got a pretty good matchup against the Dogs this week, allowing 50 in their past 3 games. The Dogs are to fullbacks. Is he someone that you're locking into your side as well, alongside Drinkwater and probably Turbo?
No, far from a lock. Not confident really in Dill at all, but we know that he's an absolute weapon footballer. If things do click for the Panthers, and they probably will this close to finals, there's every chance that he is amongst the top scoring fullbacks. I think he's just someone we got to monitor. Play him if you're pretty confident in the Panthers going well. But if you're chasing some upside, a couple of those blokes on the pod list, I think have every chance to outscore him this week.
Yeah, well, Matty P here, he is fading Turbo after being burnt by him too many times. He's not going to watch the game, but if he's fading Turbo, is he going to look at someone like Connor Tracy, who you've got over in our point of difference?
Not necessarily, but just the fact that fullbacks against the Penrith Panthers, the last 5 matches, the best team to play against if you're a fullback is the Penrith Panthers, averaging 52.6 in the past 5 fullbacks are. 4 of those fullbacks have gone above 50 points. Sorfa Alongo, CNK, Kale Weeks, Isaiah Iongi. It was just Cody Ramsey's 28, showcasing that there can be a bit of a floor game, but Cody Ramsey is a bit of that makeshift fullback there in Teddy's absence. It just seems to keep happening. Just when you think, I can't play this fullback, playing against the Panthers, put a line through him, and that's 1 try. Only CNK scored. Iongi, 63 points, no tries. For Alongo, 58 points, no tries. So I'm not saying Connor Tracy's in the same sort of, you can say his name in the same sort of breath as those blokes, but the numbers are there for a reason. And it wouldn't surprise if he, pumps out a nice sort of 50.
Look, without any research, I'd love to know how many times Connor Tracy's gone back-to-back 60 GS points in his career. I'll have to go and have a look. Look, the point of difference then for Matty P is going to be Tane Tuapiki. So talk to us about chasing last week's points. He scored 74.13 GDS points last week against the Rabbitohs. You think he's going to repeat that against the Knights this week?
Yeah, I think he can. What was most impressive is obviously kicking the conversions, isn't it? We always talk about if you've got that extra string to your bow, then yeah, you're more likely to pump up that base. And the Warriors are clicking. The Warriors are incredible, and he is just linking up with that back line really, really nicely. Still, not many try assists from the fullback position, but getting through plenty of tackle breaks, plenty of run meters. It was the 8 goals against the Rabbitohs. When you can add, 15 or 20 points onto a pretty solid base score, there's every chance that he can go big. Do we see him kicking again this weekend? I couldn't imagine Tamari Martin kicks goals on his return, does he?
No, yeah, it's hard to say. The kicking tee has been thrown around a lot at the Warriors. So obviously Adam Pompey has had his fair share of kicks. He's not on the side at the moment. Tamari Martin coming back. CHT's even had a crack at it as well. So, yeah, it'd be great to see early signs. If we can see to a peaky kicking goals, then I think I might bring him into my side. But as you touched on, look, he's averaging almost 5 tackle breaks a game, which is huge, as well as, over 100 running meters in every game that he's played almost this season, bar one against the Bulldogs, where he did have that injury. So there's plenty of opportunity for him, I think, as well, in terms of just base and power. That goal kicking potentially might be a big difference. Someone that's not going to be a big difference for is Kalen Ponga, who we have on our fade list. And look, I looked at the stats, and from a bird's eye view, I think the stats suggest the Warriors are a really tough matchup for fullback. But we go a little bit deeper, and look, the past 3, they're only allowed an average of 21. 27 from Dufty last week, who has been absolutely lighting it up the last few weeks. It's just a shame he's not available for selection in GDS. We'll put a line through Walsh's 5 the week before with going off with the injury, and then 30 from Jackson Edgar, the young bloke at the Panthers, who did score a try in that round 23. We go back to round 22. Kinney scored 50 against the Warriors. That was the last time there was a decent score on the Warriors. So it's not like it's a really difficult matchup. I think some of those players are not in the same vein as Ponga for sure, but it just feels like the wheels have fallen off this Knights team a little bit, with obviously a few injuries. Kalen Ponga hasn't been in his best. And now they're heading over to North Auckland this weekend against the table-topping Warriors. Are there going to be any points for the Knights on offer? And is Kalen Ponga even going to kick goals if they don't score any tries?
Well, that's it. I think it's the trip over there. The Warriors are going well, so it's going to be a blackout in the stadium, isn't it? Everyone's going to be wearing Warriors jerseys. The Knights won't want to be there. They'll want to get back on the plane as soon as they can, back to their own home where they're comfortable. So it's going to be a get in and get out job for them. I think that's sort of where we can see Kalen Ponga go missing if the forward pack is being monstered like we probably expect with how good the Wars pack is going. Ponga is always on the back foot there. Yeah, absolutely may get plenty of bomb defusals. Plenty of carries and that sort of thing. I just think the attacking upside is limited, both in terms of tries, try assists, and obviously in the kicking goals department as well.
Yeah. And just quickly before we finish up, simple yes or no, or you can go a little bit deeper if you like. If Latrell is named to play in the starting side, is he straight into your team?
Yeah, he'll be in one of them. Not my main one, but I'll put him in one.
Love it. If he was going to fullback, I wouldn't mind it as well. The Titans allow him 54 to fullbacks. Obviously, he hasn't played there for a while, but that would be nice. Alrighty, that is our analysis. Let's jump straight into our Stats Lab Primetime Consensus 13. All thanks to the Stats Lab Primetime. Massive shout out to them for their ongoing support of the Fantasy Bros. All of the stats that you see are brought to you by the Stats Lab. So go and check them out, the statslab.app, and check out all those awesome tools that they have available, the player stats from every game, the matchup strength, sides of the field, the player comparisons, plenty of analysis tools to really help you dominate GameDay Squad. And again, we're getting down to the pointy end. There's still $1,000 up for grabs in the last 2 rounds of the Stats Lab Primetime competition. So you can see our consensus team on screen. Look, we've gone with Harry Grant at the hooker role, Payne Haas and Udo Kamano up front with Lindsay Smith locking the scrum, Ola Kawatu and Ryan Couchman. We've talked about pretty much all 5 of those blokes already tonight. Nathan Cleary and Jamal Fogarty gets a run, and no doubt you'll play his red card in your team for sure.
Oh, yeah.
In the backs, in the centres, we've got Nick Meaney and Ruben Garrick. I think that's probably the first time we've mentioned Nick Meaney for a long time, I think, as well as probably Ruben Garrick. Tommy Trbojevic gets a run at fullback, and then Failonga and Falalo and on the wing there for our Consensus 13. Let's jump into our Consensus 13 for the full round competition. And Appy Coruscant won the spot at hooker. Terrell May and Payne Haas in the middles with Toby Couchman. Although we didn't go into detail about Toby Couchman, we still think he's going to have a really good game. And he's locking the scrum there. Jacob Preston and Couchman on the edges with Cleary and Hines in the halves. Centre, we've got Herbie Farnworth. I think we talked ourselves out of Toya, so we had him there originally, but I feel like we've probably replaced him with Kale Iro, which is awesome. We've also got Drinky filling that fullback role, and then AJ and Failongo on the wing. Unreal work. Alrighty, let's get into my favourite part of the evening. That is BroDown Showdown. Let us look at the results, and there it is, a clean sweep, 3-0. It happened nice and early too, and it means that I have wrapped up this season. Thank you to everyone that's got involved once again. And those people that did comment my name, you were put into the wheel. And let's see who has won themselves a pack this week. It is Fantasy Stats, unreal work from Fantasy Stats. They comment each and every week. So congrats to Fantasy Stats. You have won yourself a 9-player rare pack. Let me just get that up on screen for you. Can you see that there, Stu?
Yes, got it now.
Unreal. Alrighty, let's jump straight in. Good luck, Fantasy Stats. Hopefully we get some decent cards to finish the season off for you. Alrighty, starting across the top, we've got a Lindsay Smith gold. Great start there. Hugo Savala playing some good footy. Alrighty, Hansen had a debut or a second game last week. AJ there in the gold. Lovely. You can use that this weekend. And then a Blake Brayley platinum to round out that pack. So some decent cards there to use this weekend. Congrats, Fantasy Stats.
Yeah, it's a good pack.
Unreal. Great work. Alrighty, and it's as simple as that. If you want to be in with a chance to win similar to what Fantasy Stats has just done, all you need to do is comment who you think is going to win the BroDown Showdown. This week, we have got the edge forwards, we've got the halves, and we've got wings. I had first serve with Nathan Cleary, so I bagged him, while Stu went up against him with Jaden Campbell. And then on the edges, Stu's gone Tallis Duncan, and I've got Jacob Preston. And then on the wing, I've gone Bizza, and Stu has gone AJ, the massive pod in AJ this week. So if you think I am going to take it out once again and extend my lead to 17-10, comment Dill, either on YouTube right now or in the comments post the show. Remember, you can do that all the way up into the second last game of the round, which is the first game on Sunday. If you think Stu's going to win, then comment Stu across now throughout the weekend. Some really good options there, and because he's already into it and he's going with Dill again, good to have your support, mate. I have smashed it. Thank you very much, Cozzy. I just saw that comment as well. I'm pretty happy with that. Stu's obviously done well in a few competitions across the season, but I'd rather win the BroDown Showdown, to be honest. So that's, I'm pretty happy with that. Alrighty, that is it. We've made it through. We've got one more show to go for the regular season, and I cannot wait. We are jumping into the NFL season as well, so keep an eye on all of our socials for everything. Rugby League, Gridiron, AFL Finals, the AFLW, everything will be covered over the next few weeks for sure. So don't forget to like, subscribe across all of your favourite socials at FantasyBros AU. We'll see you this time next week, the 2nd of September. We're getting into September footy, and it is unreal. We cannot wait to see you there. Stu, good luck this weekend, mate. Hopefully you hold on to that Challenger top spot for the season. And everyone else, thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dill. Thanks, everyone. Good luck this week.